Hey, this is WhyBeAre with BeamNG.drive, and today we're going to be taking a look at a mod that adds the Subaru SVX into the game. And with this mod, we have 4 options, but the options are a little bit of a mess. So we have the base version in left-hand drive or right-hand drive, but no matter which version you pick, you're going to get a left-hand drive vehicle. So this is the base version of the vehicle, which has a 3.3 liter engine and is only front-wheel drive. And for some reason, it has what looks like spare tires on the front. I'm not exactly sure why it does that, but that's if you choose the right-hand drive version, that's what you get. And then if we go ahead and take a look at the inside of this thing actually has a pretty nice interior for how old it is. I like the way it looks. So you got a working clock, a temperature gauge, working gauges that light up when you turn the lights on, a light for the high beams, parking brake, you got the lights for the blinkers, and then you got the clicking, and you can't really see it, but down there we have working pedals, and then even we have a working automatic transmission that moves about depending on what gear you are in. So if we go to drive, it moves forward and so on. Now, let's go ahead and drive my SVX. And I really dig these rear lights. They look so cool. You got the blinkers on the far edge, but then outside of that, there's more lights that wrap around the rear bumper. That looks cool. So drivability wise, this thing very much just feels like a regular economy car with a bit extra horsepower. This version is not the greatest to drive, but it is decent to crash. Now you will notice, sometimes when you crash this car, the wheels just disappear. It happens. I can't explain why. It's a known bug. It happens. So there's what the damage looks like to the rest of the vehicle. And then we will go ahead and reset it. And one thing you kind of saw after the crash was the engine. So if we tear off the hood, you can see this thing has a real nicely modeled engine. This is actually kind of the engine you would see in this vehicle. So it's the Subaru EG33, which is an H6 engine. H6 just sounds really weird. Like, what is an H engine? You probably know it better as a boxer engine, which you use in a bunch of Subarus and some Porsches as well. And it's always an interesting kind of engine that I think is underused in vehicles. For now, how about a really airtime crash? So once again, the wheels have vanished, but we can still drive. They're just invisible at this point in time. There's nothing stopping me from driving like this with my Back to the Future car that just floats everywhere it goes. It makes absolutely no sense. It looks so wrong, but it is kind of hilarious just watching this thing float wherever it goes, isn't it? I can't tell exactly what the wheels are doing, but they are so damaged that all I can do is spin in circles. So I think this SVX is done. So there's what it looks like. Lots of mangling going on. And just for fun, if you actually wanted the right-hand drive version, you could do that. So you go to the dashboard and then you put the right-hand drive dashboard in and ta-da! It's now right-hand drive. Now doing that might have some other issues, like the seat gets removed and I would have to add it back if I wanted it there. But it's right-hand drive now. Everything seems to work fine, with only a few minor issues. Most importantly though, all the text has been mirrored so it reads correctly. But if you look at the gauges, they don't have speedometer needles on them or anything. They just light up and that's it, which is noticeable, but it doesn't really distract from the driving experience. It's still a right-hand drive car and the camera works, and that's what's really the most important in that situation. So let's go ahead and do one final crash with the quote-unquote right-hand drive version, and then we'll take a look at the left-hand drive version, which is just a tiny bit less glitchy. So there's a wall, looks shiny, and crash. That time the wheels did not vanish. That's good. Ooh, but the rear drive shaft broke. That is interesting. There is no rear-wheel drive on this vehicle, yet somehow we still broke the drive shaft. Anyways, let's go ahead and go look at the left-hand drive version, which is actually left-hand drive, unlike the lying right-hand drive one. And it's almost the same, except it has correct wheels on the front. It doesn't have the spare tires on the front. It just has the normal stock wheels. So it's still left-hand drive, but it has the right wheels, and otherwise it's the same. Now we're going to move on to the fun versions. We're going to go with the LSI, and this is the one that gets the all-wheel drive configuration, and it also has a really nice two-tone paint job. Like, this is back before crossovers completely ruined how cool a black roof looks. Now you got all these boring crossover with the black roof, and it's just lame now. But back then, when they put it on this car, oh man, that was cool. At least that's what I would assume, because I wasn't alive back then. But in the early 2000s, two-tone paint jobs were pretty cool to my child self. So that one, once again, the wheels have vanished. And that was a really nice crash, flying off of the rails. And let's see if we can Back to the Future this, get it onto its, well, I would take it on the wheels, but that's not exactly the case here since the wheels ain't there. We're just getting onto the not roof or the floor pan of the vehicle. Now, you know what? Let's just say wheels. This is too confusing because the wheels are still there. They're just invisible, so you get the cool futuristic car look. This car has always looked futuristic. That's the thing. The SVX has always looked pretty cool. Probably one of the most underrated vehicles from that time period, actually. All right, that's enough driving without wheels. It's just too weird for me. So here's a look at all of the damage, and then we will get a fresh one. And just for fun, how about we throw some AI in here to drive around with? Excellent. We now have some AI we can drive by. That sounds kind of weird. Are we doing a drive-by on the AI and shooting them up? Nah, we just driving by them, dude. You need to chill. Oh, but that guy ain't got no chill. Stop cutting into my lane, AI. Y'all are gonna wreck my beautiful SVX. In fact, you've already kind of ruined it because my rear wheel has a bumper stuck in it. Eventually, it'll come out, right? Oh, there we go. Okay. So now with this version of the car, and actually the other one too, because it doesn't really affect the top speed, we can get up to about 120 to 130 miles per hour on this long highway road. And it's a decently fast car. What are you doing? What was that T-Series doing? He was driving the wrong way on the highway. I have never seen the AI do that before. That was weird. Oh, I totally lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, so the performance of the vehicle was decent. It came out in 1991 and it had a 0 to 60 of about 7.3 seconds, which is just about in line with the other vehicles in its category. Like the RX-7 from that time period was about the same time. So it's a decent performing vehicle that's just completely forgotten about. In fact, one thing that's kind of interesting is the engine in this thing is basically just an EJ22 with 2 extra cylinders. There are differences in the engines, but the bore and the stroke of the engine is identical between the two. And for a while, this is the biggest engine Subaru made. So there are actually a handful of race cars out there that are using the engine from this vehicle because it's a real easy way to get a Subaru designed engine that's bigger than the one your car came with. How about we do some city driving? Instead of going fast on the highways, we'll do some tight cornering maneuvers to show off the vehicle's capabilities. And the all-wheel drive system in this thing, it really makes a difference. The front-wheel drive version really just kind of feels like it pulls and chugs along, but with the all-wheel drive putting some power to the rear, it's so much more nimble. But nimbleness can't save you when you're flying through the air. And we are not going to land on our wheels. We are stuck upside down. So let's do a little test here. I said the 0 to 60 of the real car is about 7.3 seconds. So let's test the 0 to 60 on this one. We're going to actually try to launch this as best we can. So we put it to manual mode, rev it up, and then shift. And we are off, and I'm trying to count the seconds in my head as I watch the speedometer. And there is 60. And if I had to guess, that was right around 7 seconds, which is perfectly reasonable. You know what else is reasonable? Flipping the car over like so and landing it. Aw, we did not quite land it. Instead, we wrecked it because the axles are both broken on the front. You can't tell, but they are broken. That's really the part that sucks, is when the wheels disappear, you don't know how messed up your suspension is because the suspension disappears as well. And so far, we've only been using vehicles that are available in the vehicle selector, but there are a handful of parts you can choose from the parts menu that aren't used on any of the vehicles. So let's go ahead and go through the ones I've found so far. The first is the roll cage, which is used on the drag version, but I like the fact that it says the thing that protects you from rollovers. So we can install that, and then bam, we are protected from rollovers thanks to my new roll cage. And on the side skirts, it says wide body side skirts, but there's nothing there when you choose them. That's literally the same as having no side skirts at all, so those aren't functional at this point in time. But if we go down to the front bumper, this is functional. So we get a different front bumper that goes a little bit lower, and then it also makes everything jiggle for some reason. Like, the reason these parts aren't used on anything is because most of them aren't quite finished, but they're here so you can mess around with them if you wanted to. So then we got an alternative rear bumper. It just looks a little bit different. I think I actually like this one a bit more, and this one doesn't seem to have any of the glitchy issues the other one had. And then we have a really, really dumb attachment that we can add to the roof. It is the roof scoop, which looks cool, but it has one big problem. And bam, there is a cool looking roof scoop. What does it do? absolutely nothing besides make your aerodynamics worse because it doesn't connect to anything. It's literally just like a piece of plastic added to the roof of the car. And you can't pull it off if you yank hard enough. And it's like, yeah, it does nothing. But it looks cool, doesn't it? It makes it look so much faster. And actually, it looks a little tacky. And then for the suspension, we can really go all out with the suspension. We can give it like a racing suspension setup here. We get the race coilovers on the front, the race front sway bar. And then for the wheels, I want to keep the actual wheels we have on this because they really look cool with this car. They're a little retro, but they still look nice. So I'm going to keep those on it, but I'm going to change the tires on them. I'm going to give it some racing tires so we can get a bit more traction going on. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the rear. And I hear the AI over there just honking at each other, and I have no idea what they're doing. Just being annoying and loud. Also, you'll notice some of the parts are from other vehicles. Like we have TT Sport Racing rear springs there. And then we also have weird things like some other cars as well. I'll point them out if I see any. I think under brakes. If we go to brakes, yeah, we have Type LS rear brakes too. So this vehicle really mashes some parts together from the stock vehicles to make it work. Don't know exactly the internals, but it is a little strange. But here we go. We now have a nicely upgraded suspension setup. And what do you do when you upgrade the suspension? Well, you got to upgrade the engine too, right? So with the engine, we could just swap in a big fat V8, but that's kind of lame. I like having this cool H6 engine, so we're going to tune this thing up. We have a bunch of parts we can tune up. We got the ECU. We can give it a heavy-duty long block, which means it'll hold up to putting a big fat turbocharger on it. We can put a racing exhaust on it, which I don't think changes the visuals. It's kind of hard to tell because I got the bumper covering up most of it, but it looks the same to me. Why are y'all honking so much? You idiot, get out of here. You, idiot number 2, out of here. What are you doing, AI? I swear, my goodness. A non-stop stream of idiots. Idiots. You're going to make them honk more. Where was I? Oh, yes. We are upgrading the engine. So now let's go ahead and give it a stage 3 turbocharger. And then we'll give it the 6-speed racing transmission, and we have 2 of them that are identically named, so I don't know which one to choose, so we'll pick this one. And then for the transmission, this is kind of interesting. We have 2 different kinds of all-wheel drive. We have the ACT4 and the VTD. And in the real car, it had both options. And as far as I could tell, everyone kind of came to the conclusion that the VTD was the superior one. And I drove both of them, and I really couldn't notice that big of a difference. Like in my mind, I'm saying, oh yeah, the VTD is better because that's what I read, but I honestly can't tell much of a difference. We can also give it a race limited slip front differential. And I think, did I do anything on the rear differential? No, we gotta give that one the race as well. And then the final piece to make this thing look like a race car is we need a big fat racing spoiler on it. Now we are ready for racing. This is my fully tuned up SVX with messed up lights and all. Even with the lights messed up though, they will still turn on barely, like they are falling out of the bumper. It's terrible. Before we drive on, I want to do a real quick modification. I'm going to give it more boost because you can always use more boost. Give it 40 PSI of boost. This is fine. The engine is totally not going to blow up almost immediately with 40 PSI of boost. It actually won't. It's really strong. And the thing that always gets me about the blocks in BeamNG.drive is you got the ultra heavy duty block, you got the stage 3 block, you got the heavy duty block, you got the stage 2. How do the stages compare with the duties? I actually never really bothered to look. I always just pick the ones that say duty because duty. So we're going almost 200 miles per hour apparently before we have completely wrecked this innocent SVX. But boy, was it fast. I really like this car. When it's fully tuned up, it is nice. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm about to save this guy just in case I ever want to use him again. I'm just gonna call him Fast. Very simple names make it very easy to remember what a vehicle does. And we're gonna do that same path because that's a pretty nice path to drive down. You got the traffic, but you got a mostly straight road, so you can really use all of this extra power that I gave this car. Look at this, we're at 130 miles per hour and we haven't even got onto the highway yet. That's how ludicrously fast this thing is. Once we got a big straightaway here, I would not be surprised if it can touch 200 miles per hour, except there's all this traffic in the way. 180, 90, come on. Oh, I gotta slow down, there's a big corner. Whoa, that was clean. Yes, I probably could have reached 200 miles per hour and crashed, but that was a good corner. Oh man, that's like the highlight of the video right there. Me maneuvering through traffic at 160 miles per hour going sideways. That's beautiful. All right, there are too many cars here to really even bother trying to stay on the road, so let's find a shortcut over here. I think there's a road right on the other side of this. Come on. Oh, no, who put the tree there? Ah, we're just flying a little too much. Can we drive? No, we are stuck on a route, so we have to bring him back to the road manually. Just one flick of the wrist, and then he's on the road. And how does it drive? It can put power down, but we got, like, no steering at all. Yeah, that's terrible. And now it's even worse because the wheel fell off. Great. Okay, so let's just go ahead and say this one's done. Time for a fresh one, and I'm going to do one small change on this thing. So on the radiator, I forgot to upgrade it because I was busy being distracted by all the honking and stuff. Because if you noticed, it was starting to overheat when we were nearing 200 miles per hour. Now, I don't have to worry about it overheating. All I have to worry about is the 40 PSI of boost completely blowing up the engine all at once. We are not going to have gradual failure. We will have explosive, dangerous failure, although it seems like the block is able to hold up perfectly fine with this much boost, and I don't think we're going to have a problem unless we do some serious track racing. And speaking of track racing, that is where we're heading, because I want to do some drag racing with this version I made versus the drag version that comes with the game, because they are two completely different approaches at this, and I want to see which one is the better option. Oh, what are you doing? It just stalled out on me. How do I always manage to make cars stall out when I'm using automatic mode? You would think somehow it would be able to downshift on you, but no, it don't. Oh, there's so much traffic here. This is ridiculous. I have four-wheel drive. This is how you use four-wheel drive. Yep, and then you go on this side too. This is working great, except I gotta go onto the bridge. Oh, no, no, no. Oh! I'm so sorry. SVX, you did so well, and then I wrecked your beautiful wing that I installed myself. Absolutely devastating. Except it still drives okay, so we're fine. Well, not exactly. That cornering to the left felt weird. Yeah, it's not driving right. I couldn't go in between those cars like I expected. Something's broken, and now it's really broken. Let's see if we can even get to the track with it being this bad. So go to the left. Oh, not like that. Okay, this is not gonna work. We're not gonna make it. Nope. Yep. So instead of going to the track that way, we're gonna go a little bit of a shortcut. This is probably faster anyways. Bam! We're on the track, and now the car's, yeah, engine broken. It's done. So there's a look at the damage. Pretty mangled up from all that. I don't know why, but I just see the van round the corner of the racetrack, completely ripping it at 20 miles per hour. That's just funny to me. So anyways, we're gonna go and do a drag race between mine and the drag version. So on mine, you saw what we did. We upgraded the stocks to be as strong as they could. On the drag version, they completely changed it where it's not even like an SVX. It feels like something completely different because that one is a V8 swap and it's just rear-wheel drive. But mine, it's got the all-wheel drive, the original 8.6 engine. This thing is what you want in a drag car, I would say. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the traffic because they will get in the way on the drag strip, because apparently traffic does not know the difference between a public road and a drag strip. So now we can go ahead and do the race. Although there is one small change I want to make. We're going to go ahead and increase the RPM limit as high as it'll go. This thing is made for drag racing. I don't know how long it'll last. Hopefully it lasts for a quarter mile. That's all that matters. And if we reset the car, that will get the menu to come back up where it says drag race, so we hit accept. And then for them, we got to make sure they have the correct vehicle, so it's going to be the SVX still, but they get the drag, and I get the fast. That's it, just called fast. I love that name. So you can see their car, it doesn't even look right. It's just literally a V8 swap on an SVX, which just doesn't make sense. Why bother with an SVX at that point when you're probably better off just getting any old American V8 vehicle? It's easier to swap the engine into, and it already has a rear-wheel drive configuration. It just doesn't make sense. And this ain't right. Something's not working right here. It should have been to my car by now. I don't know what happened. Here, we'll just do this again, but this time we're going to turn off the cinematic intro and see if that fixes it properly. No, that's not right. I don't usually become their car. That's weird. So something's not working right, and I guess the best solution here is just going to be to restart the map, so I'll be back once I do. Okay, the map has been reset, so hopefully now the AI works correctly. And you just see my headlights jiggling about, even in slow motion. They are quite a bit messed up. And I'm really not sure if the AI is going to work. It could be they just can't drive that car properly, or it could be the traffic somehow messed them up. Looks like it's working now, so it's just the traffic. Cool. And once again, I do have the 9,000 RPM limit, but the automatic transmission shifts a little bit earlier. And actually, it looks like power dies off about then, so that's perfectly fine. And wow! We wrecked them. We had a 9.3. They got 11.1. Okay. Now, I'm curious. Is that because they suck at drag racing, or does that mean the one I built is that much better? We're going to figure this out by swapping the cars around and seeing what happens. So now they have my version, but without the extended gears, and I'll have their drag version with just the boring V8 engine. Ugh. Why would you do that? Also, one thing that's kind of funny with the V8 is how much the engine moves around, man. I got to show you this after the race. That's a good launch. All right, so it might just be the AI. Nope. My car is great. Look at it go. That thing is a beast. Woo! So it's about a second and a half faster than the drag version. That's nice. And I think if we kept going the whole way, it could probably do 200 miles per hour. But before we do that, look how much the engine in this thing moves around when you accelerate here. We'll pop the hood off so you can see it better. And watch this. Look at that thing. It like dips as you accelerate. I never really noticed it so much in other vehicles. I don't know if it's just a lot in this one or I never noticed. But oh my goodness, does it move around. That's why you should have never swapped out the H6. It doesn't do that, I don't think. It's just this one. It's connected wrong. Like, you rear wheel drive swap this thing, and then you just don't connect the engine right. So, like, the front bolts aren't screwed down correctly. So the front just lifts or something. I don't know. It's crazy. Anyways, what I want to do. 200 miles per hour. And for the 200 miles per hour, I will give it the extra gearing once more. It's not saved in the configuration, so I got to do this manually. This will take long, though. And we are ready to go. So here we go, rev it up, and let's go! 100 like that. At 40 PSI boost, man, it gives a lot of go. Looks like a speed of about 160 at the line. 180, 90, come on, 200, 200, coolant overheating, don't care. Also, this one doesn't have the upgraded radiator anymore after I reloaded it, but that made 200. That is a smashing success. Literally smashing success. And I think that's all we're going to do for the driving portion of this video. Now it's time for the throw it off a leaf of death, because that is tradition part of the video. And here, we gotta use the one I made, so we can go really fast and fly really far. It's all parts that come with the mod, so there's no reason why you couldn't do this. We go slow at the bump, and then flooring it. How fast can it go? It doesn't have tires that are the best for this, but it's going like 90 miles per hour off of the jump. That's one of the higher speeds I've seen for sure. This thing was flying to the jump and flying off the jump. And now it's not going to be flying for much longer. We're going to use 100 times slow-mo right before impact. This should be a good angle. You can really see it smooshing into the rock. And it's actually able to cope with that surprisingly well because of the angle it hit, where it can just deflect off and slide a bit, even though that's multiple miles per hour fast of a collision. Alright, so speed it up some. Still looks just like an SVX. It kept its shape surprisingly well, but here comes the next impact. Again, 100 times slow motion. This one's a lot harsher. Everything is broken, but we have the roll cage keeping some of that structural shape intact, but it is ruined. I don't have much more to look at this thing anymore. It's just completely mangled, so we're gonna let it go all the way to the bottom. So until next time, this has been WhyBeAre, and remember, if you like or dislike this video, I'll know. I can tell by how fast my customized racing version of the car is. So do the right thing, and I'll see you next time.